In the vast emptiness of space, where silence reigns supreme and civilizations rise and fall without notice, there exists a universal truth that every species learns: never anger the humans. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had maintained this delicate balance, keeping humanity contained to their small corner of the galaxy while benefiting from their remarkable defensive capabilities. The humans were known as Deathworlders, beings born from a planet so hostile that it forged them into something that made even the most warlike species pause in consideration. But what happens when that carefully maintained peace is shattered by a single distress call? What occurs when the galaxy's greatest predators discover that their own kind, innocent human civilians, have been attacked, enslaved, and tortured by those they thought were allies? The answer would reshape the galaxy forever, because when humanity goes to war, they don't just fight to win, they fight to ensure that such horrors never happen again. And this time, they wouldn't be fighting alone. This time, every favor owed, every alliance forged, every species that had ever benefited from human protection would answer the call. This is the story of how a desperate plea for help became the galaxy's greatest nightmare and humanity's finest hour. Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the holographic display floating above her command console, her weathered hands gripping the edges of her chair as she read the message for the third time. The bridge of the UES Defiance had fallen silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the occasional beep of monitoring equipment. Her crew of 42 souls watched her carefully, waiting for orders that would either bring them home safely or launch them into the kind of danger that spacer legends were made of. "Ma'am?" Lieutenant Commander Harrison asked quietly from his position at the tactical station. His young face was pale, and Elena could see his hands trembling slightly as he waited for her response. "Should we forward this to Fleet Command?" The distress signal had arrived through quantum entanglement communication just 17 minutes ago. 17 minutes that had already felt like hours. The message was brief, encrypted with human civilian codes, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Elena had served in the human defense fleet for 28 years, had seen action during the Corvan border conflicts and the siege of New Geneva, but nothing had prepared her for what she was reading now. "Mayday, Mayday. This is the civilian transport ship New Horizon. We are under attack by unknown vessels. They're not trying to destroy us, they're boarding. Oh God, they're taking prisoners. They have some kind of neural dampeners. People are screaming. The children, please, someone help us. Our location is..." The coordinates followed, along with ship registration and passenger manifest. 347 souls, including 68 children under the age of 16. But what made Elena's blood run cold wasn't just the distress call itself. It was the timestamp. The message had been sent 14 hours ago from a location deep in neutral space, in a region that was supposed to be under Galactic Council protection. 14 hours was a lifetime in a crisis situation. 14 hours meant that whatever had happened to those people was probably already over. "Harrison, bring up everything we have on the New Horizon," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions brewing in her chest. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying the ship's specifications and flight plan. The New Horizon was a standard civilian transport, designed for comfort rather than combat. It had departed from Earth's lunar station 6 days ago, bound for the agricultural world of Kepler 442b, with a cargo of farming equipment and a full passenger manifest of colonists looking to start new lives. "Captain," Ensign Park called out from the communications station, her voice tight with stress. "I'm picking up chatter on the Council emergency channels. There are reports of similar attacks on at least 6 other civilian ships in the past month. All of them were human vessels traveling through neutral space." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. 6 other ships. If each carried a similar number of people, that meant potentially thousands of human civilians had been attacked. The fact that these incidents were just now being reported suggested either a massive failure in communication systems or something far more sinister. "Get me Admiral Chen," Elena ordered. Priority 1 encryption. While Harrison worked to establish the connection, Elena walked to the viewport that dominated the forward section of the bridge. Outside, the stars stretched away in all directions, beautiful and infinite, and suddenly feeling very dangerous. The Defiance was currently 3 days out from Earth on a routine patrol of the outer shipping lanes, one of dozens of such missions that kept human space secure. It was supposed to be a quiet assignment, a chance for her crew to gain experience without facing serious danger. The communications array chimed, and Admiral Chen's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Even through the quantum encryption, Elena could see the tension in his features. Behind him, the command center of Earth Defense Station buzzed with activity. "Elena," Chen said without preamble, "I assume you're calling about the distress signal. You received it too, sir?" "We've received 7 similar signals in the past 14 hours. All civilian transports, all attacked in neutral space, all with the same pattern of boarding actions and prisoner taking." Chen's expression grew darker. "We've lost contact with over 2,000 civilians, Elena, and the Galactic Council's response has been inadequate." Elena felt her jaw clench. The Galactic Council had been humanity's entry point into the larger galactic community 3 centuries ago. The relationship had been carefully managed, with humans providing defensive services and military expertise in exchange for technology and trade opportunities. But it had always been a relationship built on mutual fear and respect, rather than genuine friendship. Most alien species viewed humans as useful but dangerous, like keeping a tame predator that could be unleashed when needed, but otherwise kept carefully contained. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, and Elena could see him weighing his words carefully. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had made a decision that would echo through history. "The Council has informed us that these attacks are being carried out by a previously unknown pirate organization. They've promised a full investigation and appropriate action." He paused, and Elena could see the anger flickering in his eyes. However, their definition of appropriate action appears to involve strongly worded diplomatic protests and economic sanctions against worlds that may or may not be harboring these pirates. "Sir, what about our people?"
"The Council considers them lost."
"Acceptable casualties in the larger scheme of galactic peace." Chen's voice was steady, but Elena had known him long enough to recognize the fury he was keeping carefully controlled. "However, I don't recall asking for the Council's opinion on how we handle threats to human civilians." Elena felt a smile tug at the corner of her mouth. "No, sir, I don't believe you did. Captain Vasquez, you are hereby ordered to investigate the last known position of the New Horizon and determine the fate of its passengers and crew. You are authorized to use any means necessary to ensure the safety of human civilians." Chen's expression grew serious. "Elena, this goes deeper than simple piracy. We've been analyzing the attack patterns, and these aren't random raids. Someone is specifically targeting human civilian vessels, and they're doing it in areas where they knew our military patrols wouldn't be present." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. "You think we have a leak in Fleet Command? I think we have enemies who have been planning this for a long time, and they've been very careful to make sure we couldn't respond effectively." Chen leaned forward, and Elena could see the steel in his expression that had made him one of the most respected admirals in the fleet. But they made one crucial mistake. "What's that, sir?" "They assumed we would follow Council protocols and limit our response to diplomatic channels." Chen's smile was cold and predatory. "I've just authorized the mobilization of the 3rd Fleet under Admiral Morrison. The 7th Fleet under Admiral Park is being recalled from the outer territories. And Elena?" "Yes, sir?" "Find our people. Find who took them. And show these bastards why the galaxy learned to fear the humans from the death world called Earth." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Elena turned back to her crew, seeing their faces reflect her own mixture of determination and barely controlled rage. These weren't soldiers looking for glory or conquest. These were protectors who had just learnt that their charges were under attack. "Harrison, set course for the last known position of the New Horizon. Maximum burn." "Aye, Captain. ETA is 18 hours at full military speed." "Park, send a message to Admiral Morrison's task force. Tell them we'll have preliminary intelligence on enemy capabilities and positions within 24 hours. Elena returned to her command chair, her mind already working through tactical possibilities. "And Harrison? Mom? Break out the battle armor. All of it. If we're going to remind the galaxy why they fear us, we might as well look the part." As the Defiance changed course and accelerated toward what might be the opening battle of a war no one wanted but everyone had prepared for, Elena stared at the tactical display showing the positions of human ships throughout the galaxy. The 3rd and 7th Fleets represented the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but they were still just 2 fleets against a galaxy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. But numbers had never been humanity's advantage. Their advantage was what happened when you backed them into a corner and threatened the people they had sworn to protect. The aliens who had taken those civilians had just awakened something that had been sleeping peacefully in human space for decades. They were about to learn why Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, and why its children had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous predators. The hunt was about to begin. The wreckage of the New Horizon floated in space like the scattered bones of some massive creature. Its hull split open in 3 distinct sections that told a story of violent boarding actions rather than destruction. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Defiance, studying the tactical hologram that rotated slowly before her, each piece of debris tagged and analyzed by her ship's advanced scanning systems. "Life signs?" she asked, though she already knew the answer from the grim expressions on her crew's faces. "Negative, Captain," reported Chief Science Officer Martinez, a small woman whose usually cheerful demeanor had been replaced by professional intensity. However, the pattern of damage suggests the ship was systematically breached and cleared rather than destroyed. Whoever did this wanted the cargo and passengers intact. Elena nodded, forcing herself to remain calm as she processed the implications. The New Horizons emergency logs painted a picture that made her stomach turn. The attacking ships had appeared without warning, using some kind of jamming technology that prevented distress calls from being sent until the very last moments. The boarding had been conducted with surgical precision, with the attackers seeming to know exactly where to strike to disable the ship's defenses and life support systems. "Captain!" Lieutenant Commander Harrison called from the tactical station, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We've got something. Long-range sensors are picking up trace emissions consistent with exotic matter engines. The trail is 14 hours old, but it's still trackable." Elena felt a surge of hope mixed with anticipation. Exotic matter engines were rare and expensive, used primarily by species that had been part of the Galactic Council for centuries. The technology wasn't available to simple pirates, which meant they were dealing with someone with significant resources and political connections. "Plot an intercept course. And Harrison?" Elena's voice carried the kind of quiet authority that made veteran spacers pay attention. "Prep the boarding pods. If we're going to get our people back, we need to be ready for anything." The Defiance accelerated through space, following the energy signature left by the unknown ships. Elena used the travel time to review everything they knew about the attacks. 7 civilian ships, all human, all taken in neutral space under Galactic Council protection. The pattern suggested coordination and planning that went far beyond simple opportunistic piracy. "Captain!" Ensign Park announced from the communications station. "I'm receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Morrison's flagship. The task force has encountered something unusual." The main view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Morrison's angular face and steel-grey eyes. Behind him, Elena could see the organized chaos of a fleet command center preparing for military action. "Elena," Morrison said without preamble, "we've made contact with our alien friends. Turns out your instincts were right about this being more than simple piracy. What did you find, Admiral?" 3 hours ago, the heavy cruiser Normandy intercepted a Council transport ship carrying what they claimed were diplomatic pouches to the Centauri trade station. When Captain Rodriguez requested a standard customs inspection, the ship's crew became uncooperative. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Did they run? Better than that. They opened fire on a human military vessel in neutral space. Morrison's smile was cold and dangerous. Of course, the Normandy was forced to defend herself. When the smoke cleared, we had survivors to interrogate. And the crew were zealot mercenaries carrying forged Council diplomatic credentials. But here's the interesting part. Their cargo bay was full of human personal effects. Children's toys, wedding rings, family photos. Things that would only be valuable to someone collecting trophies. Eleanor felt her hands clench into fists. The Zellic were known throughout the galaxy as slavers and worse, creatures that fed on the suffering of other species. They were technically members of the Galactic Council, protected by treaties and diplomatic immunity that had frustrated human law enforcement for decades. "Admiral, are you saying the Council is directly involved in the attacks?" "I'm saying that some members of the Council have decided that human civilians make attractive targets, and they've been using their diplomatic status to cover their activities." Morrison leaned forward, and Elena could see the barely controlled fury in his expression. "But Elena, that's not the worst part. Sir, we accessed the ship's navigation computer. These bastards have been operating for over 2 years, and they haven't just been hitting random targets. They've been specifically targeting families, especially those with children. And from what we can tell from their records, they've been selling human civilians to private collectors throughout Council space." The bridge of the Defiance fell silent except for the hum of environmental systems. Elena felt a cold rage building in her chest, the kind of anger that came when someone threatened the innocent. She had seen combat before, had faced enemies who wanted to destroy humanity, but this was different. This was personal. "Admiral, What are our orders? Find the missing civilians. Retrieve them by any means necessary. And Elena? Morrison's voice carried the weight of someone who had just declared war. The gloves are off. These species have been hiding behind council protection while they hunt our people for sport. Time to remind them why that protection exists in the first place. The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts and her crew's expectant faces. She turned to the tactical display, studying the trail of exotic matter emissions that would lead them to their targets. Captain, Martinez called out from the science station, I'm detecting multiple ship signatures ahead, at least 6 vessels, possibly more. They're in formation around what appears to be a large asteroid base. Elena smiled grimly. Show me. The main view screen shifted to display a detailed scan of the asteroid field ahead. Hidden among the rocky debris was a sophisticated base, its metal corridors and docking bays carved directly into the stone. 6 ships hung in protective formation around the facility, their exotic matter signatures matching the trail they had been following. Class and configuration? Elena asked. 4 Council heavy cruisers and 2 battleships, Harrison reported. Zelac design, but with modifications. Enhanced shielding, improved weapon systems. This isn't some ragtag pirate operation, Captain. This is a military installation. Elena studied the tactical readout, her mind working through the possibilities. The Defiance was a powerful ship, one of humanity's newest destroyer-class vessels, but she was still just 1 ship against 6. In a straight fight, the outcome would be decided by skill and luck rather than superior firepower. Captain, Park announced from communications, I'm picking up human biosignatures from the asteroid base, multiple groups, possibly hundreds of individuals. Elena felt her heart rate increase. That people were alive, at least for now. That they were being held in what amounted to an enemy military facility, protected by ships that outgunned the Defiance by a significant margin. Harrison, what's our tactical assessment? The young officer worked quickly at his console, running attack simulations and defensive scenarios. Captain, in a direct assault, we have approximately a 15% chance of success. The enemy has superior numbers and firepower. However, if we can coordinate with Admiral Morrison's task force, how long until the fleet arrives? 18 hours, minimum. Elena stared at the display, knowing that 18 hours might be too long. If the enemy detected the approaching fleet, they would have time to evacuate their prisoners or worse. But attacking alone would be suicide, and would accomplish nothing except getting her crew killed. Ma'am, Martinez said quietly, there might be another option. Elena turned to her science officer. Go on. The asteroid base is using old mining tunnels for its primary structure. If we could get close enough to deploy a boarding party through one of the abandoned maintenance shafts, we might be able to infiltrate the facility and locate the prisoners. That would require getting past their perimeter patrols without being detected, Harrison pointed out. The moment they realize we're here, they'll either run or kill the hostages.
Elena studied the tactical display, her mind working through the possibilities.
It was a desperate plan with a low chance of success, but it was better than waiting helplessly while their people suffered. Park, can we establish a quantum entanglement link with Admiral Morrison without alerting the enemy? Yes, Captain. The communication beam would be too narrow for them to detect unless they knew exactly where to look. Elena made her decision. Do it. Tell the Admiral we found the prisoners and are preparing to attempt a rescue. We'll need the fleet to arrive exactly 18 hours from now, but they need to approach from the opposite side of the asteroid field. Captain, Harrison said carefully, are we really going to attempt to infiltrate an enemy military base with just a boarding party? Elena turned to face her crew, seeing the mixture of fear and determination in their faces. These were good people, trained professionals who had volunteered to put their lives on the line to protect others. She had never been more proud of them. No, Harrison, we're not going to attempt it. Her smile was fierce and predatory. We're going to succeed, because those are our people down there, and we don't leave our people behind. As the Defiance moved into position for what might be the most dangerous rescue operation in human military history, Elena could feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Success would mean saving hundreds of innocent lives. Failure would mean not only their deaths, but the deaths of everyone under her command. But Elena had not become a starship captain by avoiding difficult decisions. And as she looked at the asteroid base holding her fellow humans prisoner, she felt the same cold determination that had carried humanity from a single planet to the stars themselves. The hunt was about to become a rescue mission. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone threatened the pack. Marine Sergeant First Class David Chen crouched in the maintenance shaft, his enhanced combat armor's heads-up display painting the narrow tunnel in ghostly green light. Behind him, 11 other Marines waited in perfect silence, their breathing controlled and their weapons ready. The tunnel was barely wide enough for a human to crawl through, carved out of solid rock by automated mining equipment decades ago and long since abandoned. Phoenix leader to Phoenix team. Elena's voice whispered through their encrypted communication channel. You are go for infiltration. Remember, we need to locate and secure the prisoners before the enemy knows we're here. Chen pressed his acknowledgement button twice, maintaining radio silence as he began moving forward through the tunnel. The asteroid base's security systems were designed to detect ships and large-scale infiltration attempts, but they had overlooked the possibility of humans using maintenance tunnels that most species would consider too small to be useful. The Marine team had spent 6 hours preparing for this mission, studying the base's layout, and identifying potential routes to the holding areas where the human prisoners were being kept. Chief Science Officer Martinez had managed to penetrate the base's external sensors enough to confirm that there were at least 300 human biosignatures scattered throughout the facility, most concentrated in what appeared to be converted cargo bays. Chen reached a junction in the tunnel system and paused, consulting the three-dimensional map displayed on his visor. According to the intelligence they had gathered, the main prisoner holding area was 2 levels down and approximately 400 meters to his left. The route would take them through a section of the base that appeared to be used for equipment storage, hopefully minimizing their chances of encountering enemy personnel. Moving with the fluid grace that came from years of combat experience, Chen led his team through the maze of tunnels and maintenance corridors. The base was larger than it had appeared from the outside, a complex warren of chambers and passages that spoke of significant time and investment. This wasn't a temporary pirate hideout, it was a permanent installation designed for long-term operations. After 30 minutes of careful movement, Chen reached a ventilation grate that overlooked one of the storage areas. He peered through the metal slats and felt his jaw clench at what he saw below. The chamber was filled with personal belongings, children's toys, clothing, jewelry, and other items that could only have come from the missing civilian ships. But what made his blood run cold were the recording devices scattered throughout the room, equipment designed to capture and store the final moments of the prisoners. These weren't just slavers. They were sadists who collected suffering for entertainment. Chen moved on, pushing down his anger and focusing on the mission. His team needed to remain undetected until they could locate the prisoners and coordinate their rescue with the Defiance's attack. Personal feelings would have to wait. The next corridor brought them closer to their target, and Chen could hear voices ahead, alien voices speaking in the clicks and whistles of the Zelic language. He held up his hand, bringing his team to a stop, and slowly moved forward until he could see into the chamber ahead. 3 Zealot guards stood around a monitoring station, their reptilian features illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. The screens showed different sections of the holding areas, and Chen could see human prisoners huddled together in what looked like converted cargo containers. The sight of children among the prisoners made his grip tighten on his assault rifle. Chen activated his suit's translation software and listened to the guard's conversation. What he heard made his stomach turn. The buyers from the hegemony sector will arrive tomorrow, one of the guards was saying. They've specifically requested human juveniles for their private collection. What about the adults? Asked another. Most will go to the labor camps on Zelic Prime, but the ones who have shown defiance will be sent to the entertainment facilities. The customers there pay premium prices for humans who fight back. Chen had heard enough. He keyed his communicator, sending a brief coded message to his team. 3 Marines moved into position while the others prepared to provide covering fire. The Zealot guards would never know what hit them. The assault was over in seconds. Chen's team moved with the lethal efficiency that had made human Marines legendary throughout the galaxy. The 3 guards went down without having a chance to raise an alarm, their bodies hitting the floor with soft thuds that were quickly muffled by the Marine sound dampeners. Chen moved to the monitoring station, studying the screens that showed the prisoner holding areas. The humans were being kept in 7 different locations throughout the base, with the largest group housed in what appeared to be a converted cargo bay about 200 meters from their current position. "Phoenix Leader," he whispered into his communicator, "we've located the primary holding area." Approximately 200 prisoners in the main bay, with smaller groups scattered throughout the facility. "Request immediate support." Elena's response was immediate. "Phoenix Leader, you are go for prisoner extraction. Navy support will begin in exactly 12 minutes. Get our people to safety." Chen turned to his team, seeing his own determination reflected in their faces. These Marines had volunteered for a mission that was essentially suicide, infiltrating an enemy military base with no backup and no reinforcements. But they had done it anyway, because they had sworn an oath to protect human civilians no matter the cost. Rodriguez, Martinez, take points. Santos, Williams, cover R6. Everyone else, standard breach formation. Chen checked his weapon one final time. Remember, we've got 12 minutes to extract 200 civilians from a hostile alien facility. No pressure. The team moved through the base's corridors with deadly purpose, using their knowledge of the layout to avoid patrols and security checkpoints. The Zielak had clearly never considered the possibility of a rescue attempt, and their security was focused outward rather than protecting against infiltration. They reached the main holding area without incident, and Chen peered around the corner to assess the situation. The cargo bay had been converted into a makeshift prison, with force fields separating different groups of prisoners. 2 zealot guards stood watch near the entrance, but the rest of the security seemed to be automated. Chen could see the prisoners clearly now. Men, women, and children who had been taken from their ships and brought to this place for reasons that made him sick to think about. Many showed signs of mistreatment, and he could see the fear in their eyes as they huddled together for comfort and protection. But he could also see something else. These were humans, descendants of the people who had survived the death world called Earth. Even under these conditions, even after everything they had endured, they had not given up. They were organized, with the adults positioned protectively around the children and clear leadership structures that had emerged naturally. Chen felt a surge of pride in his species. No matter what the galaxy threw at them, humans endured. They adapted, they organized, and they never stopped fighting. He signaled his team into position and prepared to breach the holding area. The guards would be eliminated quickly and quietly, and then they would have to move fast to get the prisoners to safety before the base's defenders realized what was happening. "On my mark," Chen whispered. 3, 2, 0, 1, mark. The Marines burst into the holding area like avenging angels, their weapons finding their targets with lethal precision. The zealot guards fell before they could react, and Chen was already moving toward the force field controls as his team secured the perimeter. "U.S. Marines!" he called out to the prisoners, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We're here to get you out. Stay calm and follow our instructions." The effect on the prisoners was immediate and dramatic. Hope replaced despair in their faces, and Chen could see the same determination that had carried humanity to the stars blazing in their eyes. These people had been through hell, but they were ready to fight their way back to freedom. "How many of you are there?" Chen asked a middle-aged man who appeared to be one of the group's leaders. 212 in this area, the man replied, his voice steady despite everything he had been through. "But there are more in other sections. Children mostly, separated from their families." Chen nodded grimly. "We'll get them all. Can your people move quickly? Just point the way, Marine. We've been waiting for this chance." As Chen began organizing the evacuation, he could hear the distant sound of explosions echoing through the base's corridors. Elena and the Defiance had begun their assault, drawing the enemy's attention away from the rescue operation. But Chen knew they were racing against time. The enemy would soon realize what was happening, and then this rescue mission would become a fighting retreat through hostile territory with 200 civilians to protect. The real battle was just beginning. The asteroid base shuddered as another missile barrage from the Defiance struck its outer defenses. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on her bridge coordinating the attack while simultaneously monitoring Sergeant Chen's rescue operation through real-time tactical feeds. Her ship danced between the enemy cruisers with lethal grace, using superior human tactical doctrine to engage multiple opponents while avoiding their return fire.
"Target their communication arrays," Elena commanded. "I want them blind and unable to coordinate their response."
Lieutenant Commander Harrison's fingers flew across his tactical console, directing the Defiance's weapon systems with surgical precision.
Streams of coherent energy lanced out from the human destroyer, finding gaps in the enemy shields and systematically dismantling their ability to communicate with each other or call for reinforcements. "Direct hit on the flagship's primary antenna array," Harrison reported. "Their long-range communications are down." Elena nodded, but her attention was focused on the small screen showing Chen's team moving through the base's corridors with a growing crowd of rescued civilians. The Marines had successfully extracted the main group of prisoners, but intelligence indicated there were still smaller groups scattered throughout the facility. "Phoenix Leader," Elena transmitted. "What's your status?" Chen's voice crackled back through the quantum encryption. "Phoenix Leader has secured Package Alpha. 212 souls safe and moving to extraction point. But Captain, we found something else." "Go ahead, Sergeant." "There's a command center in the lower levels. The prisoners say their captors have been using it to coordinate attacks throughout this sector. Ma'am, this isn't just about our missing people. This is the hub of a much larger operation. Elena felt her pulse quicken. If Chen was right, they weren't just conducting a rescue mission. They were striking at the heart of a slavery network that had been operating under Galactic Council protection for years. Can you access their computer systems? Already working on it, Captain. Give me 5 minutes. Elena turned her attention back to the space battle raging around the asteroid. The enemy ships had recovered from their initial surprise and were beginning to coordinate their attacks more effectively. The Zelak were competent fighters, but they were used to facing enemies who followed Galactic Council rules of engagement. Humans had never been very good at following rules when innocent lives were at stake. Harrison, target the second cruiser's engine core. I want them dead in the water. Aye, Captain. Firing. The Defiance's main battery spoke with devastating effect, punching through the enemy ship's shields and into its vulnerable engineering section. Secondary explosions rippled along the cruiser's hull as its exotic matter containment failed, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Enemy battleship is moving to intercept, reported Ensign Park from the sensor station. They're charging their heavy weapons. Elena smiled grimly. The Zelak battleship was larger and more heavily armed than the Defiance, but it was also slower and less maneuverable. In the hands of a skilled captain with a motivated crew, superior agility could overcome superior firepower. All power to engines. Take us in fast and low. The Defiance accelerated directly toward the massive enemy vessel, her engines pushing past their recommended limits. To the Zelak captain, it probably looked like a suicide run. No sane commander would take a destroyer into close combat with a battleship, but Elena wasn't concerned with what was sane. She was concerned with getting her Marines and the rescued civilians out alive. At the last possible second, Elena ordered a sharp turn that brought the Defiance skimming along the battleship's hull, too close for its heavy weapons to track effectively. The human destroyer's point defense systems raked the larger ship's sensor arrays and weapon mounts, blinding it and reducing its offensive capabilities. Phoenix leader to Defiance, Chen's voice crackled through the communications array. We've accessed their computer core. Captain, you need to see this. Elena's blood ran cold as data began flowing across her screens. The Zelak operation wasn't limited to this single base. It was part of a network spanning dozens of systems, all operating under the protection of corrupt council officials. Over the past 5 years, they had captured and sold thousands of sentient beings, with humans making up nearly 30% of their victims. But what made Elena's hands clench into fists was the client list. Some of the galaxy's most respected species were listed as regular customers, purchasing slaves for everything from labor camps to private entertainment. The same species that sat in the Galactic Council and spoke eloquently about peace and cooperation were secretly funding the capture and torture of innocent civilians. Martinez, Elena called to her science officer. Can we download their entire database? Already in progress, Captain. We'll have everything within 3 minutes. Elena turned back to the tactical display, where the remaining enemy ships were regrouping for another assault. But she could see new contacts appearing on the edge of the system. Admiral Morrison's task force had arrived early, drawn by the quantum entanglement communications from the Defiance. Captain, Harrison announced, I'm reading multiple fleet signatures dropping out of hyperspace. Looks like the cavalry has arrived. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction as the first elements of the Third Fleet began engaging the enemy perimeter patrols. The human warships moved with the coordinated precision that had made their military feared throughout the galaxy, cutting through the Zelak defenses like predators among prey. Phoenix leader, Elena transmitted. Begin moving to extraction point Alpha. The party's about to get much larger. Chen's response was immediate. Understood, Captain. But ma'am, we've found the other prisoner groups. They're being held in separate sections and some of them are in pretty bad shape. We need medical teams standing by. Elena nodded, already anticipating what they would find. The Zelak were known for their cruelty, and humans who had been in their custody for weeks or months would likely need extensive medical treatment. Medical teams are already prepping for mass casualty reception. Just get our people to safety, Sergeant. As the battle raged around the asteroid base, Elena could see the tide turning decisively in humanity's favor. Admiral Morrison's flagship, the heavy cruiser Beijing, was systematically dismantling the enemy battleships, while smaller human vessels hunted down the fleeing cruisers. The Zelak had expected to face a single destroyer on a rescue mission. They weren't prepared for the full might of the human military. Captain, Park announced from communications, Admiral Morrison is requesting a conference. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Morrison's command center. Behind him, Elena could see the organized chaos of a fleet engagement, with dozens of officers coordinating attacks and managing the flow of battle. "Elena," Morrison said without preamble, "excellent work. Your intelligence has given us everything we need to roll up this entire network." "Thank you, Admiral. But I'm more concerned about the civilians." "As am I. But Elena, this goes deeper than we thought. The data you've recovered implicates council members at the highest levels. This wasn't just criminal activity. It was state-sponsored slavery operating under diplomatic cover." Elena felt a cold anger settling in her chest. The implications were staggering. If council members were directly involved in attacks on human civilians, it meant that the carefully maintained peace between humanity and the galactic community was built on a foundation of lies and betrayal. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Morrison's expression grew hard. "We're going to follow this network to its source. Every base, every ship, every corrupt official who thought they could hunt humans for sport." He paused, and Elena could see the steel in his eyes that had made him one of the most respected commanders in the fleet. "The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you declare war on Earth's children." Elena nodded, understanding the implications. This rescue mission had just become something much larger, a reckoning that would reshape humanity's relationship with the galactic community. "Phoenix leader to defiance." Chen's voice interrupted. "All packages secured. 243 souls ready for extraction, including some who are going to need immediate medical attention." Elena felt a surge of pride in her Marines. Against impossible odds, they had succeeded in rescuing every human prisoner in the facility. "Outstanding work, Sergeant. Bring them home." As the Defiance moved to rendezvous with Chen's extraction team, Elena looked out at the stars and wondered what the future would hold. Humanity had entered the galactic community as junior partners, grateful for the opportunity to join the larger civilization among the stars. But that relationship had been built on the assumption that the galactic community operated with honor and respect for sentient life. That assumption had just been shattered, and when humans discovered that their trust had been betrayed, when they learned that their people had been hunted and sold like animals, while council officials looked the other way, there would be consequences. The galaxy was about to discover why Earth was classified as a death world, and why its children had earned their reputation as the most dangerous predators in known space. The rescue mission was over. The war for justice was just beginning. 6 months after the rescue at the asteroid base, Admiral Chen stood before the assembled delegates of the Galactic Council in the massive chamber that had once symbolized peaceful cooperation among the stars. Today, it felt more like a tribunal, with the weight of evidence and the consequences of betrayed trust hanging heavy in the recycled air. The data recovered from the Zalak operation had led to the unraveling of the largest criminal network in galactic history. 47 council member species had been implicated in various aspects of the slavery operation, from providing diplomatic cover to serving as direct customers for captured sentients. The revelations had shattered the facade of moral superiority that had defined galactic civilization for centuries. "Honored delegates," Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We are here today to discuss the future of human participation in the Galactic Council." A ripple of nervous energy passed through the assembled delegates. Over the past 6 months, humanity had systematically dismantled every aspect of the slavery network, freeing over 15,000 captured beings and bringing their captors to justice. The efficiency and ruthlessness of the human response had sent shockwaves through species that had grown comfortable with their position at the top of the galactic food chain. Ambassador Zalak Prime, speaking for the faction that had been most directly involved in the slavery operation, rose from his seat with obvious reluctance. His reptilian features showed none of the arrogance that had characterized his species' dealings with humanity for centuries. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "the Zalak Republic wishes to express our deepest regret for the actions of certain criminal elements within our society. We hope that our cooperation in dismantling their operations demonstrates our commitment to justice." Chen's expression remained neutral, but those who knew him could see the cold anger that still burned in his eyes. The criminal elements the ambassador referred to had included 3 members of the Zalak High Council and over 200 military officers. The corruption had reached the very highest levels of their government. "Ambassador," Chen replied, "your cooperation is noted. However, cooperation in cleaning up criminal activity does not absolve responsibility for allowing it to flourish under official protection." The chamber fell silent. In the months since the rescue operation, humanity had undergone a fundamental shift in its relationship with the galactic community. The grateful junior partners who had sought acceptance and integration had been replaced by something far more dangerous: a species that had been betrayed by those they trusted and who were no longer interested in seeking approval from their supposed betters. Council Speaker Tavarev, a being whose species had carefully maintained neutrality in galactic politics for millennia, activated the chamber's central podium. Admiral Chen, we understand humanity's anger regarding these criminal activities. However, we must also consider the stability of galactic civilization. The actions taken by human forces over the past months have severely disrupted established trade routes and diplomatic relationships. Chen turned to face the speaker, and several delegates instinctively moved back in their seats. The human's reputation had grown considerably since the asteroid base incident. Stories of human military efficiency and ruthlessness had spread throughout Council space, carried by survivors of the criminal network who had learned firsthand why Earth was classified as a death world. Speaker, Tavarev, you speak of stability. But what kind of stability is built on the systematic enslavement and torture of innocent beings? What kind of civilization considers the disruption of criminal trade routes more important than the liberation of their victims? The speaker's chromatophore patterns flickered nervously. Admiral, we understand your perspective, but we must also consider the greater good of galactic peace. Surely accommodation can be reached that addresses humanity's concerns while maintaining the frameworks that have served us all for centuries. Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the faces of the delegates arrayed before him. These beings represented species that spanned the galaxy, civilizations that had achieved faster than light travel, conquered diseases and extended lifespans, and built societies of incredible complexity and sophistication. But they had also allowed unspeakable horrors to flourish under their protection, as long as those horrors didn't touch their own people. Honored delegates, Chen said finally, I have been authorized by the United Earth government to make the following statement regarding humanity's future participation in the Galactic Council. The chamber held its breath. Everyone present understood that this moment would define the future of galactic civilization. Humanity represented only a fraction of 1% of the galaxy's population, but their military capabilities and their willingness to use them had made them a force that could not be ignored. After extensive deliberation, the human species has decided to withdraw from active participation in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and agitated discussions. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices creating a cacophony of alarm and protest. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. However, he said, his voice cutting through the remaining chatter, humanity will not be withdrawing from galactic affairs entirely. We will be establishing our own protocols for interaction with other species based on principles that we consider non-negotiable. Ambassador Zilak Prime leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Chen with desperate intensity. Admiral, what kind of protocols? Chen smiled, but there was nothing friendly in the expression. Any species or organization that engages in the enslavement, torture, or systematic abuse of sentient beings will be considered an enemy of humanity. Any government that provides protection or support for such activities will face the full military response of the United Earth Defense Force. But, Admiral, Speaker Tavera protested, such a policy would essentially give humanity veto power over the internal affairs of sovereign species. The Council cannot accept such an arrangement. Speaker, I think you misunderstand the situation, Chen replied calmly. We are not asking for the Council's acceptance. We are informing you of our policy. The implications hung heavy in the air. Over the past 6 months, humanity had demonstrated that they possessed the military capability to enforce their will throughout the galaxy. The systematic destruction of the slavery network had involved operations in over 30 different star systems, often conducted without the permission or cooperation of local governments. What about trade relationships? Asked the delegate from the Hegemony Worlds, a species whose economy depended heavily on commerce with human space. Will humanity be severing all economic ties? Chen considered the question carefully. Humanity will continue to engage in trade and cultural exchange with species that demonstrate respect for sentient rights and the rule of law. Those relationships will be based on mutual benefit rather than the hierarchical structure that has characterized council politics. Over the next several hours, Chen fielded questions and concerns from delegates who were gradually coming to understand the new reality. Humanity was no longer seeking to fit into the existing galactic order. They were establishing their own rules and expecting others to adapt to them. As the session drew to a close, Council Speaker Tavares made one final attempt to salvage the traditional relationship. Admiral Chen, surely there must be some accommodation that could allow humanity to remain within the Council framework. The loss of human participation would be significant. Chen stood to leave, pausing at the chamber's exit to deliver his final statement. Speaker, for 300 years, humanity sought to earn a place in galactic civilization.
We followed Council protocols, respected Council authority, and trusted Council justice. That trust was betrayed when Council members participated in the systematic hunting and enslavement of our people.
He turned to face the assembled delegates one last time. But here's what you failed to understand about humans. We are not a species that forgives those who harm our young. We are not a civilization that accepts the abuse of the innocent as the price of peace, and we are certainly not going to continue seeking approval from those who consider us expendable. Chen's voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. The galaxy has a choice to make. It can embrace the principles of justice and sentient rights that humanity considers fundamental, or it can continue operating under the old system where might makes right and the powerful prey upon the weak.
And if we choose the old system? Ambassador Zelak Prime asked quietly.
Chen's smile was cold and predatory. Then you'll discover what happens when you make enemies of the apex predators from the death world called Earth. As Admiral Chen left the chamber, the delegates sat in stunned silence, contemplating a future where humanity no longer sought to join the galactic community, but instead stood as its judge and enforcer. The rescued civilians from the asteroid base had been returned to their families, the criminal network had been dismantled, and justice had been served. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. When someone threatens the children of Earth respond with the full fury of the world that forged them. The age of human deference was over. The age of human justice had begun. And in the depths of space, where new threats might emerge and new horrors might be perpetrated against the innocent, predators would pause and remember the story of a single distress call that unleashed the wrath of an entire species. The Deathworlders had come home, and they were no longer asking permission.